It's Fox News Sunday anchor Shannon Bream. She is, I mean, when's the last time she missed a Sunday with us? It's been a long time.
Listen,
right?
You're stuck with me, people.
We love it.
I
see what you're doing there.
I like it.
There's a lot of news going on. It's hard for us to sneak away.
It's true. It's true. What is your biggest, you're in the middle of this. We're 48 hours away from a big political moment. What's your top line thought?
Well, listen, with those poll numbers you talked about, gosh, there's so much at stake in this debate. And what if this is the only time these two actually go head to head? Fascinating to me that they've never met. I mean, imagine meeting someone for the first time on the stage when you're like, and now I'm going to try to rip your head off because I should be the next president. I mean, there's so much at stake here. Which version of these two shows up on the stage? Is it more about style or substance? I think that these polls show that everything is within the margin of error, and that means that there is a ton of pressure on both these candidates for Tuesday night.
What do you think about Kamala Harris? There's this topic that people are talking about. The New York Times is warning her as she takes the stage. It's not just against Donald Trump. It's also against the legacy of Joe Biden. Carlos Lozada writing in the New York Times, Harris will have to face off against President Biden, his record, the shifting public approval rating, and their intertwined legacies from now until Election Day. Her supporters are eager to watch her prosecute the case against Trump. But when it comes to the Biden years, Harris is both prosecutor and defendant, reformer and institutionalist, contrast and continuity, and that's a harder sell. And Shannon, Biden's on the campaign trail for her. I mean, he is in the Rust Belt. He's in the Midwest.
It's really tricky because we all know the polling that's gone on consistently for the past year has been that people don't feel good about the economy and they blame this administration for where they're at. So how does she, as she tried to do in the CNN interview, she did talk about, like, look at all the good things we've done. How do you take ownership of that, but then say, but I've got a different way forward, which is kind of the theme, the future, turning the page, I've got the new way forward. Is that an acknowledgement that some of the things from this administration have not worked? It's a really difficult needle to thread because she is still the vice president to this president. They're still the current administration. So it'll be interesting to see how much she does try to distance herself from President Biden and his unpopular policies on Tuesday night, while also saying they've gotten good things done for the American people.
Shannon, this election is so interesting, and it's not just because the polls are tight, and it's not just because Donald Trump's running again, or, the intrigue that happened, although it is important, how she was installed versus, voted into this position through a primary. But it's really the issues. I mean, we know it's going to be inflation and border and crime, but Donald Trump has introduced these new issues into this debate, I think. One of them is Make America Healthy Again, taking on corporate, greed and collusion with our food and pharma and all the things that are making us unhealthy. And then the other are issues of war and peace. And you just saw Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney, two, I would argue, pro-war, warmongering kind of people, into the discussion, endorsing her. And he is on stage yesterday in Wisconsin saying, I am a president for peace. I'm going to end these wars. There were no wars under my administration. I didn't start any wars under my administration. So those are issues that I think are really bipartisan. How do you think they will play out in the debate? And do you think that they could actually move independent voters and maybe Democrats who are disillusioned with the Democrat Party not doing anything on Make America Healthy Again, or maybe even that they're now considered the war party?
Well, and I think that's why articulation of policy, there's got to be some substance in this thing on Tuesday night. I was actually going to a Nats baseball game here a couple weeks ago, and I was riding the Metro. It's the easiest way to get there. And there was a young guy, I would say these guys in their 20s, maybe early 30s, were talking about who they were going to vote for. And I'm kind of, we're always listening in on these conversations. And the one guy said, I'm voting for her because he's going to start World War III. And you think, okay, well, look at where we are with the real hotspots and trouble around the globe. So if there's that perception that Donald Trump is the one who's going to start World War III, and you hear him in all his stump speeches, the former president saying, I'm going to prevent World War III, that shows one of those things, like there's room for him to actually try to articulate and make the case, because clearly among at least this, anecdotal incident I had with these young guys, they think he's actually the more volatile. And I think, that's probably true of his personality. But for them, that interpreted into the fact that they think he's going to be the one to make the world less stable.
Yeah, those are people who weren't paying attention to the 4 years.
To reality versus
reality.
The caricature that's been created.
Correct.
No doubt. Shannon, who do you have on Fox News Sunday today?
Well, we've got a debate panel, which is really interesting because these are guys who have prepped people at the highest level for presidential debates. We've got a DNR, and you're going to hear their final words of advice for these contenders. We've also got Senators Cornyn and Murphy to make the case for the two sides and to talk about, by the way, you guys know we're about to run out of money again here in Washington. I mean, listen, they can always print more. They don't really run out of it, but government funding is coming to a screeching halt, and there's potential for a shutdown before the election.
And they're tying the SAVE Act to it, which would prevent illegals from voting, and we'll see how Republicans